Welcome everyone to PMI's North India Learning Bite series of webinars. I would like to inform everyone that this meeting is being recorded. Request everyone to stay on mute and keep your video cameras turned off. This program entitles you for one PDU. The PDU information will be announced towards the end of the webinar. Our today's speaker is Dr. Vanita Ahuja. She is a PGMP and MRICS, and she is director at National Institute of Design, Haryana, at Kurukshetra in India. She has 25 plus years of industry and academic experience in the area of built environment. She has extensively published papers in international journals, presented papers in international conferences, and has won award for her research papers. She has contributed in policy making as part of working group drafting national level of Bureau of Indian Standards course for construction project management. She has volunteered for PMI at national and as well as global level events. She is passionate about advocacy and implementation of program and project management approach. Dr. Vinita Ahuja, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming on board on Saturday morning. So we all are going through very uncertain times in our professional work as well as personal work because both are interconnected. And this uncertainty is bringing a lot of ambiguity because we just can't plan our next week. We don't know what would be the situation next week. And we all feel, as if it has happened very suddenly to us. We never envisaged 2 months back we would be in this situation. But maybe it was to happen. We were just walking towards it. We did not realize. So this present situation just made me introspect and think that how it impacts our programs in our professional life also. And these are today, my discussion is just a reflection of my understanding as to how program management gets impacted in the VUCA world with reference to the present scenario. While going ahead in the discussion, I'll just briefly touch upon the program management concepts, what kind of projects and programs we have in our portfolios, how do we manage the VUCA environment, and how certain organizations are responding to the present scenario and what could help us in responding to the present scenario. So we all understand programs are a group of related projects, sub-programs, and program activities, which when managed in a coordinated way, bring us the benefits. And these cannot really be managed individually. So when we are executing the projects, those are individual projects. They may be large projects with a lot of sub-projects under them, but still it's a project which gets executed successfully. And we feel we have achieved our objectives, but a program is different. A program has multiple projects under it, and a program would be successful only when all the projects and sub-programs under it have successfully brought in the benefits that we had to accrue out of that program. Just for example, let us consider a metro project. Now there, the metro line that is being constructed, the rolling stock that is being brought, it's a technical project that has to be executed by the technical team. But that metro project would be successful when eventually when it is commissioned, it gets the required ridership as per the feasibility analysis that was done for it. Because if we get the required ridership, we will have lesser traffic on the roads for which the metro has been planned. And also, the metro authority has to be profitable in the end. So revenue generation from metro facilities, the tickets that we charge from the passengers, it has to be planned for. So there is a team that is working on constructing the metro, but there is a team that is also working on the revenue analysis. There is a team including self-help groups which are interacting with the stakeholders who will get are getting impacted when the construction is going on, and also doing the public relations exercise for making people understand how using metro is going to be beneficial for them also, so that eventually they use the metro. So there are different teams working on these different sub-programs. And at the end, as I said, it would be successful if we get the ridership. Like presently, we see Delhi Metro is a very successful example. But we do have metros in certain cities where the ridership is not as per the numbers that were envisaged. So somewhere either the objective was not clear or the stakeholders' needs are not really looked into. That is to be understood there. So a program is successful when we get the benefits that it was being planned for. In an organization, there are interface of projects, programs, sub-programs that are going on, and they all impact each other, and that is what a portfolio management exercise is to understand. An organization has a strategic vision. Aligned with that, a mission is established, and there is an organizational strategy and the alternatives. Understanding that, and to help achieve the mission of the organization, we plan for the programs which have domains under them of strategy management, benefits, life cycle, stakeholder, and governance. A program has its own life cycle and it has projects under it which are executed. So when we are defining a program, we have to align it with the strategic business objective of the organization and plan the program charter. And then we plan for our baselines for scope, time, cost, and other parameters. And to deliver the program, we plan the components, the projects. Now, each of these projects could start at a different time, finish at a different time, but it has to give the benefit that it has been planned for. And it has to be transitioned and closed. And finally, the program gets transitioned and closed. So it gets transitioned, meaning the benefits that were to accrue from it have been transitioned to the beneficiaries, to the end customers, and it has to be sustained also. So similar to the example, if we go ahead with the metro example, in certain cities, when the metro is commissioned, ridership is good in the beginning, but then it tapers off. Initially, people are using it for the novelty factor also and trying, but somehow they realize it does not fit into their actual requirement. So the benefit has not been sustained. So program is not successful in the larger course of time, but that has to happen if we have to deliver the program successfully. And these are the 5 domains which are there in programs when we do program management. And benefits management, again and again, I would talk about it, is a very important aspect of program management. So let us just understand the difference between a project success and a program success. If we are able to deliver a project as per the estimated time, cost, quality, and scope baselines, if we have the processes established for it, our project would be successful. But a program is successful if its objectives are achieved and benefits are realized, transitioned, and sustained. That is the crux of program management. So projects look at output, programs look at outcomes. Unless we achieve the outcome of the program, it is not successful. Let us look at the example of healthcare. Country has a program to give good healthcare to the residents or the required healthcare to the residents of the country. We are constructing so many health facilities, from super specialized hospitals to general hospitals to district level, city level, then coming down to the block level medical facilities. We have Mohalla clinics in Delhi. In different states, we have up to the block level, the health facilities. So much of construction is done, the projects are executed. But do we have the outcome of providing required health care to the residents of the country? If it is achieving that, then this program is successful. Otherwise, yes, our projects have been successful, but not the program. So this is the understanding we need to have between projects and programs. If we have rigorous processes in place in our system, we would be able to deliver the project successfully. But to deliver the programs successfully, we need agility in the organization. Because programs are not big projects. Programs have multiple projects, sub-programs under it, which are very variable. There are very diverse stakeholders involved. There are bigger environmental factors that are impacting the programs. And it may happen in a larger course of time also. So many changes that happen, we need to be ready as a team to go on responding to those changes. We need to have the ability to adapt our processes and systems and respond. Because the project environment, the program environment is very ambiguous, it is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, which is a VUCA environment in which we work. So without agility in our processes, it is difficult for us to deliver the programs successfully. In an organization, we would be having governance projects because governance is happening, operations that are happening, and then there are customer-oriented projects which bring revenue for the organization. And proactive organizations would be continuously working on redeveloping the processes, looking at how we need to change our work processes. They would also be preparing diversification plans and the expansion plans. It is all being done as per the strategic business objective of the organization. But an organization which works on business process re-engineering, diversification and expansion plans will have agility. But if we are not doing this work, we are not agile. We are not looking at changing our way of working or looking at other opportunities that might be available to our organization to grow. And that can create a problem in a situation which is today's situation or otherwise also. If an organization has to grow, we need to have these plans being made in the organization. So what is VUCA? Just to have some more understanding of this, there is volatility in our environment in which the work is happening, and more changes that happen, more and more volatile the environment is. It is complex because there are a lot of elements, there are people who are working, they are working in different places, they are working on different tasks, and all of these are interacting with each other. So more stakeholders, diverse locations where your work is happening, diverse level of tasks that are happening, it increases the complexity. You see, that is the reason we say construction projects are very complex, because diversity in all these parameters is very high in a construction project. Ambiguity is not there if we just don't know what would be the impact of a present event. And there is uncertainty because of these factors, because how do we plan for the next week? How do we plan for the time ahead? It becomes a difficulty for us. So this is a VUCA environment in which we are working in the times of globalization. It has increased because globalization has increased. So how do we respond to this? You see, when we were studying project management, we were practicing project management. The mantra that we work with is that change is an intrinsic part of project management. We all would have said this many times to our team members, that you can never plan a project to the T. You may do a lot of planning, but the moment project execution starts, changes are going to happen. Now, from that thought, when we are thinking about programs, our mantra has to be that we are working in a VUCA environment. And all these factors are continuously going to impact our programs. And we should not be baffled by it. We should always be ready to respond to these complexities and uncertainties and volatility which is going to be there in our project environment. And for that, all the stakeholders have to be trained. An organization will be able to respond to such situations only when people in the organization and all the stakeholders involved in the programs are also adaptive to it. They should not be looking for stability, simplicity, certainty in the work that they are doing. If that happens, then it would be difficult for us to respond to these situations. Earlier, we used to talk about stakeholder management. It was believed, plan a project, deliver a project, give it to the stakeholders. If they have any problem, we will manage the stakeholders. That was stakeholder management. And largely the public projects got planned and executed with this concept. But then the concept came that stakeholders are not to be managed, they are to be engaged. From the conceptual stage of the projects, we need to engage the stakeholders, look at their requirements, understand what do they really need and what are their perceptions, accordingly plan the projects and deliver the projects. And now from stakeholder engagement, we are talking about building collaborative partnerships. If we have to deal with such uncertain scenarios, we need to build collaborative partnerships. Only project allegiances would not work. We need long-term alliances. So such collaborations, such alliances help us in dealing with uncertainty, going through the ups and downs, losses and profits. We share both and we go ahead from project to project, program to program, working together. And public-private partnership is one of the aspects of it. So all the organizations need to think about collaborative partnerships and alliances. And the program leaders need to look at more hands-on management. You see, sometimes the senior people are sitting in the offices making Excel sheets, pivot tables, very nice reports. But they need to go down to the ground level to understand what are the variabilities there, what are the working situations. Many of you would be presently maybe sitting in metropolitan cities. If you have a project going on at least even 200 kilometers away from there, and if you will go there, you will realize that the project situation is so different from what it would be in your area or location. Thought process of the people, how they respond to the situations, what are the local factors, they totally change. Come out of NCR, people who are in NCR. As I said, just go 200 kilometers from NCR, maybe just 100 kilometers, and you will see the change. So it is required by the leaders to go to the ground level to understand the situations. And whatever deadlines we might be following, we might be so busy. There is a requirement that periodically we sit down, take some time off, learn something, read on something, understand what is the global situation, the environment, and reflect and realign our work if required. We should not be too busy in just executing our projects and programs. Program leaders have to be like meerkats. Meerkats are very small animals found in Kalahari Desert in Botswana region. They are even smaller than cats, harmless creatures. They walk on their four limbs. But periodically, the leader of the family, he will stand up and inspect the horizon to see what are the dangers lurking. And once the leader has assessed, again goes down on the four limbs and leads the family ahead. They may change their direction or they prepare themselves for the attack. If the leader sees that there is a requirement of attack. So that is how they walk. And this is how we have to walk when we are doing our programs. Work for some time, take a halt. What we used to say, the reviews that are done, similar to that, inspect the horizon, look at the situation, and then assess and go ahead. You see, in present times, when Corona had come in China, how many leaders took the stock of that to understand it will not take much time for it to cross the border and come here? It need not have come to us through Europe or through Middle East. If our neighbors were in that situation, how much time it would take for our own country to be in that situation? We were impacted because our manufacturing industry was impacted at that point of time also, because we were not getting the parts from China that are required for manufacturing. But that was somehow the only discussion that was happening. The leaders who have inspected the horizon at that point of time, their organizations would be less impacted by the present situation. But who did not think that it can cross the border and come here and impact. Maybe what is the severity today, we would not have envisaged. But somewhere the understanding that it would hit us also had to be there if we had been inspecting the horizon. So this is required from the program leaders. Why is there volatility in the environment in which we are working? Because yes, we are working in the times of globalization, the markets change, your vendor's situation changes, the government regulations change. There are different factors which change, and there is change in the environmental factors. And the leaders, when they inspect this, they reprioritize the projects and programs in the organization. And because of this reprioritizing, volatility comes in the system. And our resource optimization becomes impacted. Either we have shortage or we have surplus resources of certain skill sets. Both are not a good situation, a happy situation in an organization. As many resources are there, they need to be engaged, but we also should not have shortage. You see, presently, the more talk that we are hearing is that professionals are losing jobs. But by the side of it, we are also hearing professionals are leaving jobs and joining new ones. If we are in a niche service and our organization does not have projects at the moment to engage us, there is a possibility one may leave and join another organization also, which is also a scenario that is happening. So we don't need such volatility in our organization, but it happens. And it brings more uncertainty, and volatility and uncertainty leads to ambiguity and complexity. Ambiguity is there because we cannot plan the time ahead. Complexity, as I said, is there because people's, places, and the tasks that they do, they are very variable, they interact with each other, and people come with personalities. Every person working has a personality, and there are interrelations between these personalities which increase the complexity. And we have to deal. We have to first acknowledge that every stakeholder has a personality. In present time, somehow we missed acknowledging that the worker population also has a personality, and we are here bearing the impact of that. So every stakeholder has a personality and they interrelate, and that brings the complexity. And more ambiguity and complexity further increases volatility and uncertainty. And with that, what happens is VUCA environment goes on increasing. And more it increases, more and more we get into the mode of crisis management. And it leads to more dysfunctional performance. So how do we deal with this situation? For that, we need to have a VUCA shield, because VUCA is going to impact us. We can only lessen the impact. We cannot remove it altogether because we are working in a global environment. So VUCA shield is basically a practical approach that unambiguously defines objectives, roles and responsibilities, processes, policies, and all that is required to do the work. So it means we need very detailed processes for reprioritizing our projects, for doing all the work that we do in the organization. So as I said, it will not remove VUCA for us, it will just reduce its impact. And actually in organizations where there are rigorous project management processes and very healthy portfolio management processes in place, they do have a VUCA shield. And they are dealing with this VUCA environment. But as I said earlier, if we have people who are looking at stability, simplicity, and certainty, then of course, that's a matter to rethink and maybe retrain our staff so that we can respond. Because at the end, who responds? It's the people, the stakeholders. Organization consists of people who work on the projects. Now, just so responding to the present situation here now, you see how are we responding in today's time? If we just come to the present, in organizations, governance has changed, the structure of governance has changed because how we do operations, that has changed. Either it has changed properly as required because we were already working on redeveloping the processes, or it has happened in a chaotic manner because we just had to respond to the present situation. IT sector has responded very well. I think all of you who are from IT sector, you could all pat your backs because IT sector has maybe responded the best to the present situation. Many organizations had already created the system before the lockdown itself for their whole staff to work from home. And the nature of IT work is also like that, it helps also. But yes, they have responded pretty well. And they all say they are working very fine, the productivity of staff is good, work is happening very well. But not all sectors, not all organizations have been able to respond like that. Like education sector, which I represent, maybe we have changed in a chaotic manner because we were not so ready for such online education. And all education cannot even happen in an online. Then the organizations have now changed their customers because the regular customers for whom they were doing the projects now do not have the financial ability to be getting the projects. So customer-oriented projects have changed because customer has changed. Either it is aligned with the diversification plans or those diversification plans itself have changed. And it is realigned with the strategic business objectives. Realignment has happened. Now, just some examples of how the organizations have responded. Hungerbox from food industry, dealing with B2B services. I think most of you from the corporate sector would know about them. Now, you see, food industry is very badly hit Because if the dining is closed, just doing delivery does not make a business sense for them. And for a company like Hungerbox, in any case, they were delivering to the offices. And otherwise, also in food industry, they have closed their kitchens. The whole team, including chefs, is either laid off or given leave. And now when they are going to restart their kitchens, they will be incurring a huge cost of restarting the operations, bringing back the people. Some of them may come back, some of them may not. So food industry is going to have it very tough also when they are going to restart. So Hungerbox has tied up with KVN Foundation and provided its ISO certified institutional kitchens to cook over 1 lakh hygienic and nutritious meals a day. So with this, what happens is their kitchens remain operational, their team remains operational. It may be paid for by the operations cost may be paid for by the KVN Foundation, we don't know, but the operations at least are ongoing and they have not stopped. It's another matter that one person from KVN Foundation, the head, has also funded Hungerbox. But this is an example which could be taken up by other organizations in the food industry also, because presently in our country, lot of such foundations and charitable organizations are catering to the people's need and delivering food to them. So if some of the food industry organizations could team up with them and have at least their kitchens ongoing. So this is just one example. Coca-Cola, of course, their foundation is doing a lot of philanthropy work. Every big organization's foundation would be doing philanthropy work. But now their sales are also down because offices are closed. So Coca-Cola has redeployed its resources to make face shields for the frontline workers in North America. Lego Foundation is doing a lot of philanthropy work. But Lego otherwise, and I think most of us have our children playing with Lego blocks, or we have also played with Lego blocks. So Lego has initiated a new free website through which globally the families can connect and interact for play-based learning across social media and sharing creativity and play ideas and interacting with the Lego designers. So through this initiative, you see children are getting the required needs that they have because they are playing good games, learning skills from that. And present is the time when parents are free. They might not be free, but they are at least at home with the children and playing with the children. So this website does provide them an opportunity to spend very quality time with the children. But if you look at it through this website, Lego is also crowdsourcing games ideas at the global level, which could be subsequently developed further by the Lego designers to incorporate in their products. So this is a diversification responding to the present situation, and maybe going ahead, the organization also finds a path to go ahead in a different direction. Mahindra Group, it's a big conglomerate we all know of. They have different verticals in the group. Again, Mahindra Foundation is doing a lot of philanthropy work, but the tourism sector is down. So the resorts have been enacted as isolation centers for the government use. Their IT department has been mobilized to monitor cities with control centers. Their automobile manufacturing facilities are making ventilators. I think we all have read a lot about it in the media. Their engineering department is developing low-cost respirators. And real estate is also down and not expected to be performing well for a long time. So their project teams from the real estate arm are on the standby to assist the government in creating temporary care facilities. So you see in the group, all verticals are now responding to the COVID situation. Customer has changed. Customer is either the government, public departments, or the people. But the COVID situation is what they are working on. In this case, a lot of goodwill gets earned. All the organizations who are responding like this would be earning goodwill. Maybe the operational costs, if not the profits, because operational costs will remain even if the sales are not there. Maybe to not that extent, but to a large extent, it remains. So somewhere the business model is to respond and sustain oneself, even if not become profitable. And you see, Mahindra Group till now was not in the area of biomedical equipment. While working like this, it may give them another idea of diversification. Alexander Graham Bell had said, whenever a door closes for us, another door opens for us. But sometimes we pause a little too long to look at the closed door, and we lose the opportunity to look at the open door. So this is the time when organizations have to look at the new doors that are opening and maybe diversify in a different direction once we are through with this present situation. So Mahindra Group is a very good example of how they are responding. EbbenBev, the global brewers, in their process of making alcohol-free beer, they produce a large amount of disinfectant alcohol. So like in Europe itself, they are producing 50,000 liters of disinfectant alcohol. They earlier might be using it for some other product, making some other product or somehow taking it in the system. But now this disinfectant alcohol is being used to make sanitizers, or it is being packaged by itself. And their academia arm, the Academia de Meseros Modelo, is upskilling the waiters, because dining is down, restaurants are down, waiters are free now, so their upskilling is happening. Standard Chartered, of course, is giving a lot of grants, funds, loans for responding to COVID-19 situation. And the global logistics company Agility, you see, these are the companies which are utilizing their niche services ability to respond to the situation. And they are doing the core work for today. So Agility has designed interactive maps to help the logistics companies, the supply chain companies, with global air freight, ocean freight, and road freight. These interactive maps help people, the supply chain companies, to understand what route to follow, where is the berthing facility available, where the parking facility is available, where there are restrictions because of corona situation. So all this information comes through their map. So this is an example of responding through your technical ability to respond to that situation. Other examples which we have looked at are through agility of the organization to respond to the situation. This is through the technical ability to respond to the situation. So different sectors, different organizations are trying to kind of hold on to themselves in this situation and respond. But some sectors, of course, have certain constraints to respond, like education sector. We are conducting online sessions at school level, college level, rural areas, urban areas, but how effective it is left to be seen. Because one thing is that it can never be as effective as classroom teaching. Secondly, specifically in our country, net connectivity is a major issue. Everywhere it's not the same. And students come to schools and colleges not only to study, but for a bigger environment. But yes, presently, to respond to the situation so that the time also doesn't get wasted, some of the education has to happen online. So what the students want is this: classroom sessions, working in their labs, workshops, working together with their other colleagues in the college, And that is the learning they have. Actually, these photographs of the workshops and the students making a geodesic dome, these are the photographs of my institute, National Institute of Design, Haryana. This is the education we give to our students. How do we give this in an online mode? 80% of our course delivery is in this mode, where students come out with prototypes and a lot of peer learning happens. It is very difficult, rather impossible to do this. So we can maybe do 20% of our curriculum online, which is the theoretical part. But largely it has to happen in offline mode in the campus. So we are just trying to understand how to respond. But yes, definitely the present situation has made us think that at least some portion can be done in a virtual mode. And if we teach virtually certain courses, we may be able to bring experts on board, and that may further be beneficial to the students. So that thought process is on. But yes, 100% course delivery is not possible through online mode. Similarly, hospitality sector and the tourism sector, they have a problem because the user also does not want to come back now, even if the government will open. So it will be a long time for this sector to recover. So when we are in a crisis, there are three stages in which we respond. First is, of course, we respond to the crisis. Presently, we all are responding to the crisis, in which it is very important that we stay engaged with the customers, our new customers as well as our old customers, because we would be going back to our old customers. And while we are responding, sometimes responding through our intuition works because we are familiar with the situation. But in a present situation, the intuition doesn't work. We need to do a lot of rationalization, and we also need to have a lot of empathy for our staff members, for the people who are working, who are responding, because it's also a very sudden situation for them. And the leaders have to go on learning and adapting their responses. So we have to go on learning. Like in education, we go on seeing how other universities are responding. And it is a big learning for us. So every new course that we teach in an online mode, we would like to feel is in a better mode. Similarly, every organization has to go on learning from the situation. So that is a response. If we respond well today, we would be able to recover well subsequently. And while we are recovering, the present times would have helped us to understand what is the level of globalization we need to work with. What is sustained globalization? You see, China is in a trouble because they manufacture for the whole world. Their markets are global markets, and now globally the markets are down. So their industrial facility is all closed. It is down. We were having a problem, our manufacturing facility, when China had corona, because our components come from China. Most of our manufacturing requires components. We did not develop that facilities ourselves, maybe because of cost. We are getting raw materials from the other end of the world because of the cost. But how sustained it would be, that is something that we all would have to understand. And in today's presently, we were looking at the global, but now we realize our workers were also coming from far off in the country, and now they have gone. How would we work? So, how far the industry should be from the raw material, from the market, and from the workforce? That is something that we all would need to understand and make a model of sustained globalization for our own organizations, for our own industries. And if we recover well, next step would be to thrive. No doubt we would be thriving. And with a lot of diversification, a lot of learning from the present environment. But for that, we all need to keep our thought processes open. We need to be in a learning mode to understand how do we come out of this situation. So these are some of the reflections that I have after this phase of 2-3 months, that how the programs can respond to the present situation. So I would like to answer some of the questions that you would have and also try to understand your thought process.
Thank you, Vanita. Thank you. That's a really awesome session and awesome insights that you share. We do have a couple of questions, one from Ankita Bhatia and one from Deepak Bhalla, which are in the same lines. Ankita is asking, what are your thoughts on some of the useful metrics to drive relevant insights through VUCA? And Deepak has a follow-up to this. In addition to Ankita's question, what are the quality metrics to review effectiveness of processes related to VUCA environment?
Rakesh, could you come back with Ankita's question?
Yeah, Ankita's question is, what are your thoughts on some of the useful matrices to drive relevant insights through VUCA?
So matrices, I would say each industry has its own matrices. And within each industry, an organization would like to make its own matrices. But yes, each industry has its own matrices. So you have to finally look at there are 2-3 factors which every organization has to look into. First one is, of course, profitability. There is revenue generation. But some of the, like if I talk about education sector, then a government institute is not looking at profitability, but if it's a private institute, yes, definitely they would need to look into the profitability. So that is one aspect. Second is stakeholder engagement. That is very, very necessary. So whatever instability, whatever complexity we are going through, your internal as well as external stakeholders have to be engaged and have to be satisfied. Your staff at present, which is responding to the situation, we need to be having empathy for them, because for them also the work processes have totally changed. And also the end customer. So like whether they are students, whether they are customers for other sectors, we have to see that they are satisfied with how we are responding to it. Because otherwise, our response is not useful. So taking our internal team ahead with us and looking at the satisfaction of the external stakeholders is very, very important. And for the private sector, of course, profitability. At present, you may not be earning profits, but if you just stay afloat and manage your operational costs well, that is also responding well. So these matrices are very important.
Great.
And for quality, also, so quality comes in that. You see, if you will deliver quality, your external stakeholder would be satisfied. Your end customer would be satisfied. So compromise on quality is not to be there in any situation. I feel that has to be the hallmark of every organization. Yes, Rakesh, please.
We have another question from Mukul Gupta, and he's asking, COVID-19 environment is going to remain for some time. For what kind of impacts we should be prepared of with regards to project success?
Yes, Mukul, definitely COVID-19 is here to stay for some time. I think we are in a fool's paradise if we think that we will be over from it soon. Yes, the impact may become less with time, but for some time it is going to be high impacting us also. So the response has to be, you see, it will be very adaptive response. We have to maintain social distancing. our raw material delivery is going to be impacted, workforce productivity would be impacted. That is my understanding, because what happens is that somewhere the present environment has impacted every second household. And that does impact the productivity professionally also. So these impacts are going to be there, and we should not have very high targets for our deliveries for some time. So make realistic targets. Because if we make very high targets, unrealistic targets, we would be putting stress on our internal stakeholders. Our team will get stressed. So at present, what I feel is that managements need to have a constructive approach where they keep the morale of the internal stakeholders high, interact with them constructively so that productivity of the internal stakeholders does not go down. Somewhere the accountability also remains, that has to be there. But do not make unrealistic targets. At least another for some time. It may be 5 months, 6 months, or 9 months, or 1 year. We should be having little low level realistic targets. After that, if we are able to overshoot, that's a bonus for us. But do not overstress your internal stakeholders by making unrealistic targets to maybe, have a good picture there for the external stakeholders. That should not happen. I think that has to be the main thing now we all have to look into. How do we retain a balance and able to go ahead? Because any disruption in your balance will disrupt the system totally. That will create another VUCA for you.
We have another
I answered.
Amit Tiwari.
Yes.
Current COVID-19 situation made VUCA more stronger in entertainment cinema sectors. Your thoughts on response strategy?
Yes, it has impacted the entertainment sector. And now we see certain, whether they will be able to do the shoots of new films, that is going to take some time. We see a lot of shows happening online, but that is also an understanding that beyond a point that will not really work with the people. They do want to go and see in the physical form. It is not only the cinema, at least the sports also. The whole entertainment sector, the sports sector, all are going to get impacted. Now, how do they reimagine their work has to be seen, but it is a difficult time. As much of online viewing people can do, people are doing. But let us hope that, with time they can shoot more. Cinema halls are going to be closed. It is going to be online viewing. So entertainment sector has to see that how much more content they can create. Viewing will not basically go to the cinema halls for some time, or to the sports stadiums, or to any such forum, but at least more content should come in. And that more content can't be what we are seeing now, a lot of it being shot in the closed rooms. That can only suffice for some time, but not for a longer run. That does not retain the interest. So more content with online viewing, that is going to be the strategy, what I feel.
We have a question from Gira. Uh, in Indian present scenario, how VUCA will be implemented in project management?
Specifically in India, it said?
Yes, Indian present scenarios.
You see, one thing that I said earlier to a question also, that do not keep very high targets just to please your external stakeholders. So as what we have always read and understood in project management, never under promise and never over promise. So presently, what I would say is that our targets have to be conservative. And then if the situation improves, we can make our targets higher. Whatever projects you are dealing with, just again take your internal team with you because they are the ones who are going to deliver. Leaders will be there to lead. Delivery happens by the team. So they have to be taken ahead and realistic targets have to be maintained. And you will see if we do that, we are maybe going to have better returns than what we are looking for. But it is a difficult situation. So don't overpromise your customers at any point of time. Just keep that as one basic principle. And
We have a
do look at alternative modes of resources, raw material. If you are there in a manufacturing industry, construction industry has to look at its own alternatives, maybe more prefabrication and other aspects. So every industry would have to look at its alternative mode of working and taking your team ahead with you. Yes.
We have another question, I think, which you already answered partially from Sumit. He's asking, in VUCA environment, resources, timeline, etc., get very constrained. How to achieve project success in such constrained circumstances?
Is it constant, you said?
Constrained.
Constrained, okay. Yes, they are going to be constrained. Time is going to be constrained, resources, there is going to be a lot of ambiguity in availability of resources for your projects. And unless those resources are in-house, you would not be able to be sure that those resources are available. So go by the broad timeline, as we otherwise also say in project management. Don't detail it out for the future. Have a broad timeline, try to follow that, and then go with progressive elaboration. The detailed schedules have to be prepared for a very smaller time frame. And broadly, we should be having a timeline. So there you see your foresight as a project manager, your understanding of where this situation might go into by maybe reading, by observing about the situation. Because what is also helpful in this COVID is that some countries are ahead of us. So we could take some learning from them. But of course, we are in a very unique situation. That has also to be understood. But we do need to look at the examples in different geographical areas which are little ahead of us in COVID. And that would be very helpful for us to plan it, customizing it to our own country's situation. We can plan our projects, but make a broad timeline and make detailed schedules only for a certain period of time. It could be for some sectors, we could say we plan only for a month. Some sectors could say we will plan in detail for 2 months or so, depending how much of resources are available in-house and for how much resources you are depending from external resources. But there will be a lot of ambiguity. So don't try to make very detailed plans for a longer period of time. Keep it more fluid.
Great. I think we can take one last question. We're already ahead of a couple of minutes of time. We have a question from Mr. Verma. How to keep teams engaged in VUCA environment? They should not feel that processes and policies are continuously changing.
That is true. Actually, certain sectors which are responding in a very chaotic manner, there the teams do have an issue because the processes are changing. So what I feel is that, looking at the present VUCA situation, I think we all have had enough time now to stabilize our systems. If we had a learning in last 2 months or so, by now our systems should have stabilized and we are ready for a longer haul now. So we are looking at a time frame of a longer time when the recovery will happen. And we should make now processes. So that work has to be done by the organizations to now establish processes which we can anticipate to be working for a little longer time. That work the senior management has to do. Because if we go on changing, that's a problem. But as I said, we have had enough time now, 2 months to stabilize our systems and not remain too chaotic and too changing. We know now changes are going to be there. So certain systems have to be such which would survive, which would suffice our requirements. So that work is required from the senior management in today's time. Yes, please.
Great. Thank you, Vinita. We do have a few more questions, but I think we'll be capturing and we'll see if we can find a way to respond to those in some of our other forums. For all the members who participated, the PDF information is up screen, and they can probably take a screenshot or capture those. And I'll keep it there for a few more minutes to claim PDFs. Recording of this session will be posted very shortly on the PMI North India chapter YouTube channel. So you can subscribe to that, and I think it takes a day or two to record for the recording to be available there. So, and do watch for communications from our teams in regards to those and updates there. I can see a lot of thanks from all the members who participated. Thank you, Vanita. Thank you so much. It was a really awesome session and very enlightening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for being part of this webinar and, of course, listening to me. And I just wanted to share these thoughts. And thanks to everybody taking out time on Saturday for listening to the webinar.